Welcome all to the Pro Football Radio Podcast. This is your co-host, Jay Cheema, with the pride and joy of Merrimack, New Hampshire, the Puma, and unfortunately, our senior contributor, Eric Burgess, aka the Burge, is not here with us today. He has COVID, and we are wishing him well. From all accounts, he is doing well. He's a little achy, but he's doing well. So we hope him a speedy and quick recovery.
Oh, he's fine. He's still busting our balls in the group chat. He's going to be just fine.
He still has the strength to give us shit,
He still has the strength to give us shit and to send the haterade gifts and push my buttons. Yes. Burge is going to be just goddamn fine. He'll be on the next episode, and I mean that as a term of endearment. So
yes, Burge, we miss you, sir. Wait. We hope you're doing well, and I'm sure you'll be back on the air giving us all kinds of shit. But let's move forward towards podcast 81. We're going to talk some J.J. Watt news. As most of you know, he got released. We'll talk about where he ends up. We'll talk about some Carson Wentz news. It seems like Carson Wentz was on the move last week, but he's still a Philadelphia Eagle at the moment. We'll talk about why. And then finally, we'll round it out with some Brady news because, at this point in time, my friend Brandon the Puma Silva is now a Tom Brady fan. It took him 21 years.
Let's not get carried away.
It took him 21 years.
Let's not get carried away.
And 7 Super Bowls later. But finally, Brandon has become one with me on the Tom Brady situation.
Let's not get carried away. All right, just because I took Tampa Bay to go against the public in the Super Bowl, and I can see your parts of the argument. And just the fact that we're going to get into it towards the end of, people just being upset for being upset's sake. Yeah, it's a bit stupid how people are reacting to a few things on the little interwebs of what Tom Brady did with the trophy. But yeah, let's not get carried away, Jay.
Does this mean that now you're going to finally get a Tom Brady Tampa Bay Buccaneers jersey as well?
No, we're good.
All right,
we're all set.
So that's only reserved for Josh Allen, right?
yeah. Only Josh Allen. Allen's my boy. Whatever.
You know what, Puma? I was thinking about this the other day. I think next year I am gonna buy a Justin Herbert jersey.
I don't see why not. Like he is clearly your boy.
He's my boy. I love him.
You love his game as much as I love Josh Allen's game. There's no shame in that. And clearly, if we redid the draft last year, you could make a very strong case that he should be the first overall pick over Joe Burrow. Like if you just looked at what he did this year compared to what Joe Burrow did in a truncated season because of the ACL injury, but like injury aside, he's been playing the better football out of the entire quarterback class of last season.
Well, a lot of people don't really understand how well Justin Herbert played last year just because, he's in LA. He's usually not in primetime windows. He's usually in the later games. On top of that, the Chargers weren't the best last year, so he had one big game, I guess, against the Saints on Monday Night Football. But, to put in perspective, if Trevor Lawrence comes out and has a year that Justin Herbert had last year, Trevor Lawrence would be a massive success. So, I think the sky is the limit for Justin Herbert. I'm super excited, and I will probably end up copying one of his jerseys. I think I'm going to go with that navy blue alternative they have.
Oh, no powder blue.
No powder blue. The navy blue they got is pretty nice, man.
Okay. All right. But no, in all seriousness, though, like Herbert, like he only had, like you said, like he only had, I think, like 3 primetime games. He had the 4 o'clock game against the Chiefs in that spot start, the Saints game, and then that fiasco against the Raiders. But like all that aside, he was not on primetime, and I love me some Anthony Lynn. Don't get me wrong, Anthony Lynn's a great guy, but he overcame inept coaching. So. Yeah, if there was, like, competent coaching, I guess you could say, the Chargers would have been a playoff team. Yeah. Hands down.
I agree on that. Okay, well, let's move on. Do you want to talk about anything else before we get into the J.J. Watt news?
So what was what did you do the last couple of days between the schedule of sleeping and waking up? Did you have any deep dives with your thoughts? I know you're getting into the 90-day fiancé series. You picked out your girl. We gotta fill our Sundays now that we don't have football. Like, what is Jay Cheema doing?
Well, I've been working out, and let me run something by you. I almost did something today that I did actually a few months ago, and it almost got me in a lot of trouble. But a few months ago, I took this new pre-workout, right?
Oh, boy.
I think it's the one that you recommended. It was the Ghost version of something, whatever it was
Yeah.
called. So it's Ghost something, but it's a great pre-workout, and I take it, and I'm feeling good. I'm in the gym, I'm pumping iron. It's just one of those pumps where everything just feels right. You have a good night's rest. You have a good night's rest. You have a lot of fluids in you. You're hydrated properly. I remember I had steak the night before, so I just didn't feel depleted. And you always know a pre-workout is good when you're so lost in your workout, you're so focused that you don't know where you're walking around. And I decided to go to the locker room, right? And I needed to go to my locker room. I think get something out of my bag or whatever it was. This is the middle of my workout, but I'm so in tune with just like the concentration that I accidentally walk into the women's locker room. Right?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And this was like 3 months ago. I almost did this a couple days ago again as well. Like there's something about that pre-workout, man, where like you just get so in the zone. And like you just kind of free. It's like that crackhead, pre-workout. Yep. You're scratching your head. You're just like not really in it. All you see is the weights.
Yep.
And I almost ended up walking into the.
Now you know how Gronkowski feels. Gronkowski's like this every day. He doesn't know what he's doing half the time, except modeling on a boat.
But for him, it's CTE. For me, it's just the pre-workout. It's too strong,
Pre-workout. Who knows? Maybe pre-workout leads to CTE. Well, I'm glad you survived the first time. There wasn't a lawsuit. There wasn't any harassment issues with the gym. You survived it this time.
Well, the first time around, so it's really weird, but like if you've been to a big gym like a Planet Fitness or a corporate gym, most of everything looks alike from what I understand. And the women's locker room looked exactly like the men's locker room, but on the opposite side, if that makes sense, right? So I walk in and everything is off, right? I go to the locker that I put my clothes in and I open it up and there's nothing there, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Because like you can't fathom it. You can't realize what's going on because like everything is just off by a little bit. And for a second, I thought I had lost track of time or something. And I just came to, like, a few years later, I was in some sort of alternate dimension. I was that confused. And that was the only time in my whole life that I was so genuinely confused that I don't know how to react.
Jesus, sounds like Inception. You have to spin a top to make sure you were in this, current reality. Jesus Christ! All right, I gotta get back on the pre-workout because
seriously,
I need that back in my life.
Dude, get that ghost, man. Get that ghost.
Yep.
It's so good you'll go into a different dimension.
Love it.
That should be their tagline.
Yes, we gotta hit them up in the DMs, slide in their DMs to give them the marketing.
How about you, man? How you been feeling your time without football? How's things getting on in the Puma household? Are you getting reacquainted with Tara and the family once football has been has come to an end?
A little bit, and like my mother-in-law and the little dog moved into the house, so it's like
big fan of Dutchie. I'm a big fan of Dutchie.
Dutchie, Duchess, Dusty, Chestnut, Chester. Insert the name here, but. No, getting reacquainted with the family. I feel like I said it last week, Robin Williams and Jumanji. What year is it? Minus the full beard. But no, just doing that. Catching up on 90 Day Fiancé, which, we might as well just do like a spin-off podcast just to talk about that nonsense.
So what was your biggest takeaway from the latest one? And for me, it was essentially...
Everybody's getting knocked up?
Well, first of all, like, everybody hates each other. Like,
yep.
If this is what married life is, I don't want none of it. You know what I'm saying? I've been watching this show for about 4 weeks now, Puma, 5 weeks now, because you and Tara essentially brainwashed me into watching it. And so far, I've realized nobody is happy on this show, right? Nobody is happy on this show. And essentially, the other thing that I picked up on was... there's this routine to the show where essentially, one person out of the relationship is pissed off. They go and talk to somebody about that problem they're having in the relationship, whether it's their friends or family. Their friends or family, instead of calling them out on their shit, just feeds them with affirmation saying, yeah, he's a piece of shit or she's a piece of shit. You should dig in. And then that person goes back to the relationship and makes the fight even worse, right?
Yep.
It's just the worst kind of relationship possible.
And it's like, you can tell sometimes that it's almost like it's a work, like it's scripted, like we're going to create this issue, we're going to have this kind of reaction. But no, this is just the tip of the iceberg, Jay. Like this season really can't hold a candle to like the last 2 seasons of 90 Day Fiance. Like, yeah, find it. Like, I think they have a couple of the seasons on demand. Definitely catch up. It's an interesting time. Like,
well, who's that chick in Woodstock, Georgia? Because I think that this past episode they had a little get together with, I believe, Zaid, right? Is that
Ziad?
Yeah.
Yes, I love you, baby. I love you, baby, so much.
And what's his girl's name?
Rebecca.
So they went out to dinner with their family, and like this like young hot girl was asking if she could help Zaid move. And, like, Rebecca gets all pissed off. And that just felt like it was a little bit of a work, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. That was definitely a work. That was definitely a work. She's just, like, being friendly. But I guarantee you the producers were like, okay, like, we want you to be friendly. And, Rebecca, we want you to lose your shit. Like, we need to keep the audience captivated. And why not do it at a dinner table at an Applebee's or whatever the hell it was that they were sitting at.
Yeah.
But, no, those two are interesting people. The season before... when Zied found out that like Rebecca was legally still married, that was must-see TV because she was out in Tunisia at the time, and in his culture, like divorce is highly frowned upon. Oh, yeah. So like,
trust me, I know.
So like, not only that, but like to find out that like the person that you're dating is technically legally still married to their future ex-husband. He lost it. Like, I thought he was gonna bury her out in like the Tunisian desert. I was like, I hope there's security around here. Like, he's going out there with like a leather jacket and like 85-degree heat in the desert on an ATV. Somebody's gonna die. Somebody's gonna die.
Well, I really enjoy. I'm a big fan of Yara, right?
Jovi!
Every single time it cracks me up.
For those of you that don't know, Yara is from you're her biographer, the Ukraine. And she's engaged to this guy, Jovi, who is basically an alcoholic, but he just won't admit it. He lives in New Orleans, and she does not like the city. She can't stand New Orleans. She says, and I quote, "It smells like piss every day."
Which she's not lying.
The apartment. And you know what? From accounts that people have told me, she is not wrong about what Bourbon Street smells like. It does smell like an open outhouse at times. So she's not that wrong, but it's how she goes about it. And every time that they have an argument, she's like, "Jovi, you're so stupid, Jovi."
That's spot on.
Everybody out there, check it out. If you have TLC, it's on demand. It's 90 days. I believe it's before the 90 days. Definitely check it out. Tell me if my Jovi Yara impersonation is spot on or not.
Well, last thing before we move on, because I promised people we'll talk football. This is why you're here. But that couple, so for me, the most fascinating storyline in the whole show was because of Yara, because I thought she was super hot, right? But whatever. But I'm starting to get really intrigued with the storyline that's happening out there in Sequim, Washington, between that...
Squim,
right? Squim. And who are those people? I don't know these people just yet because I'm still new to the show. The two that are based out there... the hillbilly and the Russian chick, right?
Yep. So another Ukrainian woman. God, I'm forgetting her name.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep. She's blonde. She has really curly hair. And then the guy that lives out in Swim, Washington, just outside of Seattle, his name is Mike, and I call him Big Mike. And they clearly cannot stand each other.
Mike and Natalie.
This goes back to last year or last season rather, when like she threw the engagement ring back at him, and she found out he didn't believe in God, and I quote, believed in aliens and an asteroid that went by the planet. That's a whole different fucking story. But no, they definitely can't stand each other. That's definitely a story to keep your eye on.
Well, I like the fact that they went to like a therapist, and I don't know if the therapist was part of the work. You know what I'm saying?
Oh God, yes.
But no, God. But even if it was part of the work, they were actually talking about some real shit. Because he comes on and he's like, "Listen, I don't love you anymore," and she's like, "Oh, I kind of don't love you either." And at that point, like everybody knows, the only reason they're together, first of all, it's a wrap.
What are we doing?
And the second reason is because Natalie, the only reason she's with him is because she wants to get entry into the United States. I mean, that's what she wants, right?
Yeah.
And the fundamental issue with the show is nobody calls out that bullshit, because we all know why this is happening, right? Like, nobody's trying to find love. We all know why this is happening.
No, Jay. Jovi really loves Yara, and Yara really loves Jovi. They're just working through some shit. What do you mean she only wants to be there for a green card, and he wants the nice, the chick on the side. Like, come on now. They really love each other.
Listen,
what are you talking about?
Jovi's only holding the spot for me while I get ready. I'll get ready to make my move.
Okay, wow.
I'm gonna insert my 90th fiance bio right now to try to get in the show.
Yes, that'd be great.
The only way I'm gonna come on the show is if I can date Yara. That's it.
I better have a part.
Of course, you'll be the guy.
Man.
You'll be the guy that walks around and says what I want to say, but in Yara's accent, back to Yara. You know,
Yara. God.
I'm like, Brandon, please tell her I'm not going there tonight, and then you'll jump in and be like, he's not going tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd love that. Jesus, must see TV.
Let's talk some football, huh?
I guess so. I mean, I guarantee you, if Freddie probably shot himself by now, hearing my Yara impersonation. But don't worry, Freddie. If I hit that Utah Jazz bet you told me about, you got some dinero coming your way.
What's the Utah Jazz bet?
So, since Freddie is the Nostradamus of the podcast now, he messaged me the other night being like,
well,
hey,
can we back up and explain why he's a Nostradamus? Because he's the only one out of all of us that predicted a Buccaneers win by 14 points or more. I laughed at him when he said that to me. I was like, I mean, I'm the biggest Tom Brady fan out there, but you're just on some nut juice. But he was right.
Yep, he was right. He hit it. And the other night he was like, Brandon, I had a dream that the Utah Jazz won the NBA championship. Go put some money down on the Jazz to win the title. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to question this shit. Like, the kid's been hitting it, and he's been on the Buccaneers all year, and then he called the Super Bowl. I'm like, fuck it. I look at the odds. The Jazz, I got him at plus 1,600, so like a $10 bet would be like $175.
Okay.
Yeah. Put a little bit down on there. And then he's texted me a picture of like I forget like the name of the book, but it's like some like dreams becoming like reality kind of deal, like a psychology book. And I was like, hey, I mean, should I go put like my life savings down on the Jazz? Like, I don't know what I should do, Freddie. I might have to make another trip out to New Jersey just to do that.
Hey man, listen, if you want to make one out with me, I'll go out there with you one last time.
Let's do it. Last ride.
But did you see a thing I sent you on Twitter where essentially a bettor in Vegas put down $10,000 for the Washington Wizards to win the NBA title? And it's a long shot, obviously, but if the Washington Wizards win, he gets a $5 million payout.
He just likes to burn a pile of cash. I mean, he could just pay off my student loans if he just wanted to waste money. I mean, I watched the Wizards last night. Like, John Wall was really, like, keeping Houston in that game. The Wizards really, like, defense is optional. It's like watching the Big 12, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some J.J. Watt action. As most of you know, the Houston Texans have released J.J. Watt. They're all pro tackle. And essentially, it looks like his most landing spots are going to be somewhere between Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Tennessee, and Indianapolis. Reports came out today that Cleveland might be in the front runner seat to land J.J. Watt services, which would be kind of insane to see J.J. Watt paired up with Myles Garrett in that front seven. So Puma, I turn the floor over to you, sir. Where do you think he's going to land?
I think it's probably going to be for me, Cleveland or Buffalo. And I'm not just saying this because, like, hey, like, I'm down with Buffalo. Like, I don't really fucking care what people think. But I just think, like, that landing spot for the Bills would make sense. They have to get bigger on the offensive line. That was one of their bigger issues in the playoffs this year, was they were on the small side on the defensive line. So that would make sense. Sean McDermott is a defensive-minded coach. He gets the best out of his players. But no, I'm with you. Like, I think if I had to rank it, I would go Cleveland, probably Tennessee because of his relationship with Mike Vrabel. Vrabel used to be the defensive coordinator for the Texans many moons ago, but he does have that relationship with Mike Vrabel. And then probably Buffalo in the third spot. But, I mean, we all knew that the J.J. Watt transaction was going to happen, but I think we all agreed that he was probably going to get traded. Like, they're going to want to get an asset for him because they don't have a first-round pick this year. They don't have a second-round pick this year because of the Tunsil trade. Maybe they could get a second-rounder for Watt to at least get back into, like, into the NFL draft this coming season. But no, they did right by him. They cut him. They saved $17.5 million off the cap, which, depending on what happens with Watson, if you want to try to bridge any gap between him and management and ownership, re-signing Will Fuller would probably help that cause a little bit. So that frees up some money to bring him in. But no, I was honestly surprised that they just cut him. But no, I mean, good on Watt. This was even before we recorded the podcast, Jay, when he got that massive contract. We both did not agree that he should be paid that much money and tie up that much salary for a franchise on the defensive side of the football. And not to say that we called it, but we did, because ever since he signed that massive contract, he's been dogged by injuries. He's never really finished the full season. And I think this was the 1 year where he did finish the season, and it wasn't J.J. Watt-like numbers. So, I mean, I hope he can go hook on with the team and make a deep playoff run, but I think it's going to be Cleveland, Tennessee, and Buffalo.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think first off, I was really, pleased to see that the Houston Texans just released him, essentially, throwing him a bone, because they could have gotten something out of him. J.J. Watt, I understand, has had his issues the last 2 or 3 years with injuries and this and that, but I do believe a third or fourth round, or definitely a third round, was probably on the board for those guys getting back in return for J.J. Watt. But they did right by him. They wanted one of their pillars of their organization's history to go out and decide where he wants to go. Now, moving forward, I think it makes too much sense for him to go to Green Bay. I think those guys are essentially very close in Green Bay land to go into the Super Bowl. They were in the NFC Championship game this year. They barely lost to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And I feel like with him being from Wisconsin, it'd be a perfect fit. It'd be one of his best chances to win a Super Bowl. I think a close second is probably Pittsburgh. I think there is something to that brotherly relationship because both of his brothers currently play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can line him up with the other Watt brother on the defensive line. I don't think Bud Dupree's going to be coming back, so I think this could be a replacement for him. And then finally, I think it's probably going to be Cleveland. I mean, that report that came out today from Mary Kay Cabot saying that, Cleveland is in the front seat, I don't buy it, man. There's something about it that just doesn't feel right to me. And it might be just, Mary Kay, the cabbage, as you call her back in Ohio, might be used for getting information out there. But if I had to put it right now, it's probably Green Bay, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland third.
Gotcha. Now, what do you think? There was people out there on the Twitterverse saying that Watt getting released is like a direct correlation to what they're going to do with Deshaun Watson. Do you buy any stock in that logic, or is that just people reaching way too far to try to jump to conclusions on what they want to do?
Well, I think people are just reaching way too far, man, because Watt and J.J. Watt are not in the same sentence when it comes to importance to the Houston Texans. I mean, you got one guy on the hand of Deshaun Watson, who is essentially a 25-year-old young stud that's going to give you 10, 15 more years of elite play at the most pivotal position in sports at quarterback. When on the other end, you got J.J. Watt, who's like 32 going on 33, battered, broken down, made most of his money, had 1 year left on his contract. There's not really any real money being sent towards J.J. Watt with his contract. All the guaranteed money and has been already paid out. So I think in this scenario, they're not comparable. If I had to guess, it's probably just people trying to drum up some sort of storyline.
Same. When I started seeing that, people being like, "Oh, Deshaun's next. Deshaun's next is going to be any day now," and I'm looking at him like, no, he's not. Like, do you watch even 30 minutes of SportsCenter? Like, they're not, like, they are not going to budge. Like, this has no correlation to what, son of a preacher man Jack Easterby's going to do, or the new general manager Caserio, or the new head coaches. Like, this has nothing to do with Watt. They did right by Watt because Watt is the Houston Texans, and like they don't want any animosity towards him. They don't want. I'm not saying he is going to be a Hall of Famer. He probably is going to get in the Hall of Fame at some point. But I mean, you don't want to have that fractured relationship that Calvin Johnson has with the Detroit Lions if he goes in, or Champ Bailey with the Washington Football Team. Like, you want to at least still have some sort of an olive branch between this franchise and a potential Hall of Famer and a game record at the position over the last 10 years in his career. So this has nothing to do with it. People need to pump their brakes a little bit. And I just hope wherever Watt lands, which I think is probably just going to be a 1-year contract, I just hope he balls out, is able to stay healthy for the full year, and make a deep run in the playoffs, because the guy does deserve it.
Now, do you think that J.J. Watt would come to New England to be coached by the GOAT coach, as one of our wonderful colleagues says? I'm sorry, I couldn't. I'm sorry,
God,
Bird. I know you're listening.
We're picking on a guy that's sick in his basement. Jesus. All right, I'm going to have a more tactful approach in saying this.
You don't even have to answer it. It was just more.
No, I'm going to answer it. This is going to be like A Few Good Men. I'll answer it.
Listen. I just threw that out there to try to get Bird.
No, but like in all seriousness, because when the release came out and Pat's pulpit, God bless them, and like some of the people that do like the Patriots podcast that you guys check out a little bit. They're all like trying to draw comparisons to any defensive lineman that becomes available in free agency. You saw that with J.J. Watt on Saturday. You saw that with the cat from freaking
Panthers.
Carolina. I forget his name, but he was just released today. But everybody's trying to draw the lines to them going to New England. It's like no, like the rosters that they got released from are better than what New England has right now. Like they are in the end of their prime, on the back nine of their career in some of these cases. Why would you go to a rebuild? Like if that was the case, you might as well have been banging the table to stay in Houston or to stay in Carolina and see if you trade up to get the first overall pick and get, Trevor Lawrence if he can do a blockbuster trade, or maybe if you're Carolina, you pull off a trade to get Deshaun Watson. But no, like there's no reason why anyone would really want to go up to New England. And that's not me just saying that as a Dolphins fan. It's just on paper. Let's be honest. Nobody knows who's throwing the football. The skill position players are a mess at best because James White's probably going to walk in free agency. Sony Michel kind of came on towards the end of the year only because Damian Harris was banged up towards the end. Somebody had to carry the fucking football, and nobody knows what N'Keal Harry is. So, like, why would anybody bang down the doors and come to Foxborough? Not these guys.
Well, maybe he wants to be coached by the GOAT coach. A.K.A. the Barnyard Goat. No, listen. In all seriousness, man, like a lot of people just throw that out there because it's easy. It's gonna get clickbait. It's gonna make some buzz. Any single time a prize free agent or a big guy or a big name comes on the free agent market or the market in general, I feel like the Patriots are always gonna be connected just because of who they are and the cachet they bring. Now, I will say, I was always under the belief that people came to New England to ring chase, and it seems like J.J. Watt wants to chase a ring. He made it abundantly clear he does not want to rebuild in Houston. He wants to go to a place that will actually compete and compete immediately. The other part of this being, we all laughed, and I know where it's coming from because it's Rex Ryan. But Rex Ryan a few weeks ago on national TV said, essentially players came to New England to play with Tom Brady. Now with Coach
Ain't
Bill,
wrong.
Not to be coached by a Coach Bill Belichick. And a lot of that is true right now. And I think a lot of us Patriots fans are gonna come to the sad realization in the next year or so that, it really is hard to attract people to come play in a northern city where they don't pay much at all if you don't have the chance of winning, right? It'd be one thing if Belichick actually paid a lot of money and got people in the door, but he doesn't do that either. That's not part of his philosophy. So then what else is there? If you're not going to win, if you're not going to make money, you're going to be in the cold, why would you end up going to New England? So that's just my little spiel on that.
Facts. Well, no lies told so far.
Let's move on to some Carson Wentz news. So, Carson Wentz has been in the news for about, I would say, 2 weeks now. A lot of stuff came out right around Super Bowl saying that he was going to be traded immediately. However, at the moment, he is still a Philadelphia Eagle. And a lot of it comes down to the Philadelphia Eagles are looking for a Stafford-esque package, which we all laugh at.
Oh my God. When I saw that the other day, I spit my soda out. Listen, I know I would defend Wentz with the injuries and whatnot, but and I know everyone's gonna say, well, Matthew Stafford got hurt. Matthew Stafford would play out there with a broken leg if he could. He was, nothing, not to take away from Wentz, but Matthew Stafford is the toughest son of a bitch that I've seen play football in a very long time. So to expect a Stafford-esque haul for Carson Wentz is, in my opinion, a bridge way too far.
Yeah, and listen, I think you're spot on because I'm in the same boat with you, and I think most of the league is also in the same way of thinking as we think because right now nobody has made that offer to the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, if he was worth it, somebody would have paid it. And the reports are coming out that, they didn't even receive, the Philadelphia Eagles haven't even received a first round offer yet on Carson Wentz. And that's probably why he hasn't been moved. It looks like Indianapolis and Chicago are going to be the preferred landing spots from all the reports that we have out there. Like, you've been on for quite a bit now, and it looks like you're going to be right. It looks like Indianapolis is going to be a spot where he's going to end up at, just because Frank Reich and Carson Wentz know each other from their Philadelphia days. Too much to the chagrin of our buddy Burge. But, it looks like Chris Ballard isn't going to go out there and overpay for getting Carson Wentz. He's not going to be giving that Stafford-esque package back to Philadelphia, and I think he's playing it smart. I think he's offered a second rounder, and I think that is a good number for Carson Wentz.
Oh, yeah, for what the contract is, what his injury history is. And, let's be honest. And I know that, like, the Bears, I saw a report today. I think you actually sent it to me. The Bears have the better offer on the table, but Wentz would prefer to go to Indianapolis. But he doesn't have a no-trade clause, so it's really in the hands of the franchise at that point. But, I mean, everybody knows that the Eagles got themselves in this mess. They're going to have to get themselves out of it. There's no sense in rushing to overpay to make sure you get your guy. Like, the Colts are in the catbird seat. They have a decent first-round draft pick. They could potentially trade up in a package to get a quarterback in the first round. Or we've been on this when we've been talking about the Pats offline. There are decent second and third round options in the draft that Frank Reich could potentially work with behind this offensive line. So there is no sense to push the nuclear panic button to try to get Wentz. I said it last week. Ballard has to have a cool hand if he wants to make sure that if Reich gets Wentz. Just play a cool hand and just wait for the market to come down. There's no sense in rushing this. And I think if anybody's going to overpay, it's going to be Chicago, because the head coach and the general manager's asses are in a sling. I honestly don't know how they are still on the staff, considering the last couple of years that have gone on in Chicago. They had that 1 year where, the double doink, where they could have made a deep playoff run. They had the defense to do it. Mitchell Trubisky was actually playing very good football at that point. And then the wheels fell off the bus with Nagy's play calling and the general manager just trading draft picks and bringing on albatross contracts like a crackhead. So I think if anyone's going to overpay, it's Chicago.
Well, I don't know why Chicago is so hell-bent on trying to get Carson Wentz. It's like they're making it seem like he's Deshaun Watson, which I could understand if you're hell-bent on getting Deshaun Watson, because, well, we all agree Deshaun Watson is way better than Carson Wentz. But from where I sit, and please tell me if I'm wrong, like, the fact that Carson Wentz might have a little bit of a higher ceiling than Mitchell Trubisky. However, Trubisky's been out there more consistently than Carson Wentz, right? So I feel like that weighs it out. So why wouldn't the Chicago Bears just ride it out with Mitchell Trubisky, right? And I think if I was the owner, and this is where good owners step in, you got to see these things for what they are. You've got to see a GM and a head coach grasping at straws, trying to remedy the situation, and in turn they might take down your organization with it. And I'm throwing takedown out there as a very liberal term, but they're going to make very aggressive moves that aren't in the best interest of the organization. You feel me?
Yeah, exactly. And you also have to look at their cap numbers. I think Chicago is kind of in the middle of the pack, but Wentz's contract is just such a friggin' albatross that somebody's going to have to take a pay cut in order to absorb that salary cap. Either that or the Eagles are going to have to get crafty and trying to send money the Chicago Bears' way. But, I mean, Khalil Mack is going to have to take a possible pay cut in order to absorb this. And, I love me some Khalil Mack, but I really don't think he's going to be thrilled about taking a pay cut to get a guy that's played one full season since 2017. So I don't know. I think that's a very tough ask for the Bears. And I saw today on, I think it was First Take with Max Kellerman. I think it was Max. He was saying that if Wentz goes to Chicago, they're an instant Super Bowl contender.
What?
And I looked
at that. What is he smoking? Why do we bring this guy's name up?
Jay, it was either, I honestly want to say, it was ESPN or Fox. It was either Colin Cowherd or it was Max Kellerman. But one of those two guys said Wentz makes the Bears a Super Bowl contender. And I laughed my ass off and I said, off of what tape from last season can you honestly say he makes them a Super Bowl contender? There's nothing out there. There's nothing out there.
Let me ask you a question. So let's say this deal does go through. Well, first of all, let me ask you about the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward, and then we'll get to the Chicago Bears angle of this. So let's say they move on from Carson Wentz and they elevate Jalen Hurts into the starting position in QB1. Do they take a quarterback in the mock drafts? Because so far, a lot of mock drafts have the Eagles still taking the quarterback for some reason, which I don't understand. They have, Justin Fields going to Philadelphia, but what do you think they do with that number 6 overall pick at that point?
I think you're going to have to get either skill position player, like they definitely need another wide receiver. Priority to me would be offensive line because everybody on that line is old. Jason Peters got hurt. Lane Johnson had a horrific ankle injury by all accounts last season. That offensive line got old. That used to be the hallmark of the Eagles for a couple of years was the offensive line. So I would rank it offensive line and then wide receiver and go from there. Maybe a running back in like the 3rd round, but I'm not reaching to take a quarterback when me taking one in the 2nd round is the reason why I have to eat a shit sandwich with the Carson Wentz contract. Yeah. Like if Jeffrey Lurie does that, if he takes a quarterback in the 1st round, he is no better than Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland prior to Kevin Stefanski and Eric Berry being named head coach and general manager respectively, because that is a Jimmy Haslam-esque move of, we just torpedoed our entire franchise for a little bit this season and threw our fanship in a lurch. But no, we're going to just double down and we're going to take a quarterback after we basically said we don't believe in Wentz anymore. Here's Jalen Hurts.
I think they should take Kyle Pitts at that number 6 spot. I think with the issue with Zach Ertz and the instability at tight end right now, I think a tight end like Kyle Pitts could be that blanket that Jalen Hurts and a young quarterback needs. And I think those two pairing up would be absolute dynamite for the Eagles going forward. But moving to the other side of this, the Chicago Bears, let's say they do acquire Carson Wentz, where does Mitchell Trubisky end up at that point? Because then at that point, I would love for my New England Patriots to kind of jump in and try to see if they can bring in Mitchell Trubisky and salvage him for a few years. I mean, I am not the biggest fan of Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't want him as a Patriot. I mean, if it comes down to it, and he's the only remedy, then sure, I'll take him. I mean, I am a big fan of Marcus Mariota just because of his athletic ability and his arm talent and the fact that he's fairly cheap. But I also wouldn't mind taking a look at Mitchell Trubisky for quarterback 1 as well next year.
I mean, that would make sense. There's going to be. I think he would be going in as a backup. Just because of we all saw the car wreck that was Cam Newton this season, and we all know the track record of Mitchell Trubisky with the interceptions. Is it really that much? I guess on the athleticism scale, it's an upgrade, but when it comes to playing the quarterback position, it's I think you can call it a wash at best because they're both not precision passers in a offense that is dependent on timing and accuracy and hitting the guy at the right time in the right route. Unless they're just going to finally wave the white flag and overhaul the offense to something that wasn't for Tom Brady over the last 20 years, I think that might be an interesting landing spot for Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. But, I mean, we saw what Josh McDaniels did with Tim Tebow. Granted, we can say what we want of Josh McDaniels taking Tim Tebow in, the 1st round as a quarterback. We all know that was a colossal mistake. But he was able to unlock Tebow a little bit with his legs and have him running around the field a little bit. So that could work to Mitchell Trubisky's strengths. I said the last couple of years that Matt Nagy went away to what made Mitchell Trubisky, which is off-script throws, running, getting the yards, moving the sticks kind of deal. And that's what we saw with the double doink season. So if they're able to get back to basics with Trubisky, by all means. But I mean, let's say Wentz goes to Chicago. Who's he throwing the football to? Anthony Miller's been up and down. Allen Robinson's probably going to get franchised and traded. What are we going to do here? David Montgomery's been a massive disappointment up until now. That offense is still not going to get fixed by a guy that's been, let's be honest, Mr. Glass the last couple of years.
Yeah. What are they picking? They're picking fairly late, right? They're picking at the
they actually have a 1st-round draft pick this year.
Wow. So who do you think they're going to be targeting on offense or on defense?
I would say the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, let me pull up a mock draft here and look at see what they got. Excellent podcasting right here while we look up stuff, right? People are just enthralled.
But I mean, it's just like, everybody's like trying to draw these conclusions with the Bears, and it's like I can understand, like, you want to make a splash for your fan base. You've been the laughingstock since the double doink. Everybody's making fun of you guys for passing on Watson and Mahomes, and you took Trubisky at 2 when you really didn't fucking need to. They have to do something to inject this fan base, but as a Wentz defender, I just don't see Wentz as the guy. I don't buy that logic. I think they need to draft smarter. Do you have where they're picking in the first round?
I don't know, but it's gone now. But what I wanted to get to real quick was, I've been doing more research and getting ready for some of our off-season podcasts, especially around, draft time. And I've been doing a lot of homework on the college quarterbacks, especially the top 5 coming out, and I think I have it all solidified, right? And here's where I stand. I've got Trevor Lawrence as being by far heads above everybody else. He's going to be the best possible quarterback coming out. He's going to be in line, as like Andrew Luck or a John Elway, and he's going to be absolutely wonderful for the Jacksonville Jaguars. After that, the 2 quarterbacks I want to stay the hell away from is going to be Mac Jones, which I've obviously detailed many times on the podcast why, and Zach Wilson, man. Like, the guy has some serious red flag issues off the field, man. Like, every report you hear seems to point to that he's not the best leader. On top of that, he's very spoiled. And the one thing that really triggered me was the fact that he doesn't really want to put the work in. I feel like that is going to be the one thing that you can't get over in the NFL. And then the 2 guys that I think are being Trey Lance, I don't have much information on because he played for 1 whole season and essentially 1 game this season, so there's not much tape on him. But the one guy, Justin Fields, and this is obviously, you can call me a homer for saying this, but looking at his tape, man, like, I am starting to get shades of Deshaun Watson when he came out of the draft. There's this narrative now throughout the nation to somehow belittle Justin Fields and who he is and his accomplishments. And I think it's a little bit on the unfair side. And the reason why I bring up Deshaun Watson is because we all remember coming out of the draft, people said a lot of negative things about Deshaun Watson. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but the narrative gets built in, and for some reason, people shy away.
He's not accurate. I remember that for Watson.
You remember that?
Was one of his knocks. And I was like, he just won a national championship. I think he completed like over 65% of his passes. Mm-hmm. But sure, he's inaccurate. Okay, I understand, Mel Kiper.
But you remember seeing him on the national stage just tearing up Alabama and essentially taking over a national stage, right? You remember that, right?
Oh yeah, I watched the game.
Same thing Justin Fields did just like 4 weeks ago. He took over a game against the Clemson Tigers where he was injured and he wasn't 100%. He still gutted it out and threw some dimes. And people are using 2 games out of his 2-year career against him as a knock. The Indiana game, which fine, I will agree with you. The Indiana game, he did not play good in. And the second game they used against him is that Northwestern game in the Big Ten Championship game. Unfortunately, people don't mention 22 players were on the COVID reserve list for that Big Ten Championship game. Like, that just seems to be poofed up in the air.
And didn't he jam his hand? He hurt his hand, right?
Yeah, he was injured. 22 of his players were on the COVID list. There was just a lot going on that week that people are using against him. And he's starting to fall, man. I'm starting to see some mock drafts where he's going in the 10s, in the 11s, in the 12s. There's even a couple of drafts that has him going to the Patriots at 15. And if he's there at 15 and Bill Belichick passes up on him, I'm going to lose my shit. Because, like, at 15, you take Justin Fields, and he becomes your starting quarterback in about a year or so when he's ready, and he's going to give you a good 8 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Chicago's picking at 20. Chicago's 20th in the NFL draft. But no, I'm with you. I mean, at that point, if he falls to 15, he has to be the best player on the board. And if everybody's at the school of thought of you got to take the best player available, then Justin Fields is the pick. Like, there's no excuse at that point.
Just know I said it right now that what happened to Deshaun Watson when he came out of the draft is happening to Justin Fields right now as well. Because we all saw on a national stage what Justin Fields did against against the Clemson Tigers. Obviously, against Alabama, the whole Ohio State team was outmatched. Even now, I'll agree to you, we were not on the same level of Alabama, and you can't put that on Justin Fields. But that night against Trevor Lawrence, the hit that he took and the fact that he came out and still battled showed you toughness, showed you guts, showed you that he can perform when not everything is 100%. And a lot of these quarterbacks in the NFL want everything to be 100% or else they can't perform at a high level. But Justin Fields is that rare cat that will compete no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to get that out there. It has been bugging me the last few days. People just taking...
I'm glad we could have a little therapy session for Justin Fields.
And you'll hear that a lot. Trust me, they're going to keep referencing the Indiana game and the Northwestern game, the two losses, the two bad games he had this year. And I'll be the first one to say that the Indiana game, he played bad. But that Northwestern game, he didn't have nobody starting for him. Everybody was on COVID. There's a lot that's behind it. So keep that in mind as draft season comes upon us.
Yep. You heard it here first, folks, from our Buckeye insider, Jay Cheema.
We got one last thing to hit on today before we call it a day, and I will let Brandon lay this out because I love to hear Brandon defending Tom Brady. So go ahead, sir. It's all you.
All right. So we all know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a little boat parade last week.
Well,
they all had.
Before you get to that, the best championship celebration parade I've ever seen. It was absolute pandemonium. I had FOMO just sitting up here in the Northeast looking at those guys on the beach and in the river and on their boats having a great time. I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing up here?
Yep, freezing our ass off. That's what we're doing. But no, we all saw last week. They had a boat parade. Awesome time. Tom Brady, old-ass Tom Brady, shows up in his own little private speedboat yacht type of deal to this thing with armed security, throwing the Lombardi trophy between boats, and we saw Tom Brady shit-faced, which I'm going to say, for the casual fan, probably helped his, not to say image, but it did. There are people up until that point where fuck Tom Brady. He always just keeps going to the Super Bowls and winning, and that whole narrative kind of deal. You don't like somebody because they just keep winning a fucking football game. But I think that helped him soften that image a little bit in their eyes. Be like, hey, Tom Brady's like me, getting shit-faced and having to get carried out by, his best bud to the car because he just got totally tanked off of what he called avocado tequila. But
can I make a quick point on that before you move on? I'm sorry to keep cutting you off here.
But Shut up, Jay!
But listen, I do believe that Tom Brady being away from the Patriots and Bill Belichick, I think also helps his image. Do you feel like me that the fact that he's not tied in with all of this helps his image, or is that just me in my mind?
I think so because I was actively rooting for Tom Brady for me, Jay. You've known me for a very long time. I've made no bones about the Deflategate stuff. I've made no bones about Brady and Belichick, but just the fact that he isn't in this, regimented, air quote, the Patriot way, groupthink and Kool-Aid thinking, he was able to go out there, overcome Bruce Arians at times and overcome Byron Leftwich at times, win a Super Bowl and just let loose. To me, the only thing I can compare that to is in 2016. It's a baseball reference, but the Chicago Cubs, they won the World Series that year, but that was also the first year that we saw Alex Rodriguez doing play-by-play and commentary for Fox Baseball, pregame, postgame, and seventh inning stretch, and that really humanized him. And I couldn't stand Alex Rodriguez as a player, but after that, it's okay, I'm looking forward to seeing Alex Rodriguez on TV to break down games and tell some really bad jokes. To me, it softened his image the way that this season softened Tom Brady's. So I'm definitely with you with that. But there's always one person, Jay. There's always one person out there.
Hater.
That has to take offense to anybody having a good time. Mm-hmm. And that one person is the daughter of, I'm not even going to dignify the family name because of how fucking asinine and stupid this take is. She was upset at Tom Brady throwing the Lombardi trophy from his boat to Cameron Brate / Rob Gronkowski's boat because, and I quote, me, it brings dishonor and disrespect to the Lombardi trophy. I want an apology for my family as well as the families of the other architects involved with the trophy. Let's get something straight. One, nobody gave a shit a few years ago when Rob Gronkowski used the Lombardi Trophy as a baseball bat on opening day at Fenway Park. Everybody laughed their ass off because it was Gronkowski, the knuckle dragger that he is, playing baseball with the Lombardi Trophy. And two, let's just get this elephant out of the room. If the shoe was on the other foot and the Kansas City Chiefs won the fucking Super Bowl and Patrick Mahomes or our guy, Burgett's favorite head coach, Andy Reid, threw that Lombardi Trophy from one boat to the Lamar Hunt family boat while he was eating a cheeseburger, everybody would be laughing their goddamn ass off. So everybody needs to get out of their damn feelings, accept the fact that, yes, Tom Brady won the Super Bowl. Yes, Tom Brady got shit-faced at the Super Bowl parade on his own boat. And yes, he still completed a 25-yard pass to a moving object while under the influence of alcohol. He is the greatest of all time. Let's stop raining on the guy's parade because he's having a good time on a boat. I saw that, Jay. I saw that argument from this woman, and I instantly started yelling Karen in my basement while I was working the other day. I just lost it. I was seeing red. This is 2020, 2021 in a nutshell. Anybody that's having a good time, somebody's got to rain on that goddamn parade, and it drives me fucking bananas.
Well, I think one of two things are happening here. And when I saw this story, I just laughed it off and I moved on, didn't give it a second thought. But I think what's happening here is she wants to be part of the story. I feel like essentially she's probably just some sort of loser, doesn't have much going for her in life. And I think this is her moment to kind of jump up and try to be part of the story. Or number two, it's just simple Brady hate. I think it might be a simple Brady hate. She might be somebody that grew up as a Dolphins fan. I think she's from Florida, right? Is that what you mentioned? She's from down there?
I think I don't even know what state she's from. I'm not even gonna get it. She's a fucking Martian in my eyes, Jay.
It might simply be just be Brady hate. I mean, there's a lot of that happening. People just can't seem to give this guy his due. People will pick at the littlest, dumbest things possible, whether it's the refs or whether it's this or whether it's that, or, you know, he didn't play good in the second half of the NFC Championship game. Whatever it is, they're going to grasp at to try to diminish Tom Brady because he's just the best football player of all time. So
come on, a moving object under the influence of alcohol throws it 25 yards and Cameron Brate catches it.
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was absolutely awesome. I think that day humanized Tom Brady. I bought a shirt from Barstool Sports that has Tom Brady drunk walking out with Cameron Brate. I'm sorry, not Cameron Brate. What's the backup quarterback's name? Ryan Griffin. Griffin holding him, essentially looking like he is plastered on a record out of the 80s. So I got that coming my way. But simply, man, it's either one of two things. She's either a loser and has no life, or she hates Tom Brady. Simply put.
Or it could be both. She probably thinks the referees fixed the game too. You know, there's still people out there. Like,
I'm glad you brought the whole Patrick Mahomes angle, and I've been saying this for a few weeks now. I'm starting to get a little annoyed with just how we're trying to lionize Patrick Mahomes. Like, I understand his incompletion.
Did you see the way he tied his shoes? He's the greatest of all time.
Exactly.
Look at that. Did you see his technique and how he got down on one knee and pulled the shoelaces exactly the same way and did the bunny? Like, Jay, like, it's to that level.
Like,
it's insane.
I understand his incompletions were amazing and we all marvel at them. But, like, people are talking about it like he actually completes those passes. Like, I'm just starting to get really annoyed with, and I think this is just more Brady hate. I just think they want somebody to come along that is going to supplant Brady, and they want to do it as soon as possible.
Like, Jay, I'm gonna say this about Mahomes, and I didn't say this during the Super Bowl because I was more concerned about making sure my bets hit than trying to poke a bear with Burge.
Same.
But, like, there were two instances where he was dead to rights and he just kept backpedaling and he fell back at least like 30 yards and he was able to get the ball away, but you could make an argument that, hey, the referee swallowed the whistle and that could have been intentional grounding. But if any other player, a la Josh Allen, did that, people would be burying that kid. They would be burying him the entire fucking time. But because Mahomes makes a few no-look passes, he gets a free pass. And it's starting to get to like where I felt when I was younger with, like, you know, just Brady all the time. Brady this, Brady that, Brady this, Brady that. I didn't get through my 5 stages of grief with Tom Brady to the point where he's now in the Derek Jeter category where I respect him. Like, it's become so much of it's Kansas City or bust, or it's Kansas City or bust. Or like, oh, Kansas City is like they're leading the odds right now in the NFL to go back to the Super Bowl. And it's like, I honestly don't think so. Like, I don't think they're the best team in the AFC right now. I think a lot there could be an argument could be made that the Buffalo Bills have the more complete roster at this point. And like in the NFC, I think the Green Bay Packers would like a word. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would like a word at repeating and going back to the Super Bowl. So like it's just instances like that where just the quick reaction of he's simply the greatest of all time because of a few no-look passes and a horizontal incomplete pass is just driving the market, and it's just insane. It brings back to me shades of Aaron Rodgers when he first won his title and how he was playing football.
Well, listen, and this is just me, but I think early on in that Super Bowl, before the pressure started getting to him consistently, I think there was opportunities where he was shaky. There was definitely a few passes where all he had to do was step up instead of taking those 17, back pedals to the right. If he just stepped up, he could have had a clean pocket throw down the field. I don't think he took it. I think he wanted that deep shot. He kept holding on to the ball. He didn't take those easy 5-yard dump offs. And then eventually in the second half, the floodgates opened where he had to run for his life. But there are times where in that game, early on, he could have kept a minute if he simply just stepped up, and people just don't want to. I don't know what it is, but it's starting to get very annoying, the amount of love and adulation that's being sent. And I think you know this about me very well, Puma. I hate more than anything on the planet premature coronation. If you do something great, then I will be forced to say that. But at the moment, let's not put him in the Tom Brady category because he does not have 7 Super Bowl rings. He doesn't have 2 or 3. He only has 1 at the moment. So let's just chill and cool out on that. And that's one of the main reasons why I love Justin Herbert so much, because I do think in that division, Justin Herbert is the one quarterback in the division that can maybe try to take away that mantle from him, and that's why I'm hoping he'll turn into somebody great.
I'll drink to that.
Yep. Cool, man. Well, you want to get to anything else before we wrap it up?
So, because we're now heading into the off season, the recording schedule is going to be a little bit in flux, right? What do we think? Like, we're thinking every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks,
depending
I think,
on breaking news?
Yeah. Like, if there's some breaking news next week, we'll jump on and do one. But I think if everything happens as we expect it to happen, we should be back every 2 weeks. We'll probably pick up the frequency around the draft and free agency. And then we'll go back to every 2 weeks again before we get back into the full swing of things when the football season comes back around.
Sounds good. And next time we record, Jay, you will be back in the Buckeye State, correct?
I will be back in the Buckeye State, yes, sir.
Oh, boy. Columbus, look out. Jay Cheema is a coming home.
Jay Cheema, it's a homecoming.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Well, we'll definitely be getting boots on the ground updates from the Buckeye part of the world over there. So
I'll be hanging out there on campus. I'll be trying to get the inside information. I'm like, hey, we're just going to
get Ryan Day on the pod. It'd be great.
All right, man. We're at 58 minutes.
Wow. All right. Well, another record. Let's plug this up and get the hell out of here.
I thought the fact that we talked about 90 Day Fiancé for 20 minutes and crack as your pre-workout, it really helped us.
I think so. I mean, I'm going to hashtag the shit out of this on Twitter with like 90 Day Fiancé just to get like the listens up. So we got this, Jay. It's going to be Jovi! My God.
And now she's pregnant. And now she's fucking pregnant.
Now she's pregnant. Everybody's getting pregnant on that show. Listen, everybody listen to the pod. If you haven't watched it yet, don't knock it till you try it. Trust me. Plus, there's no football on, okay?
This is coming from me. This is coming from me, a person that decided he was going to have his stand against 90 Day Fiancé, right? I was not going to watch that. I'm not a loser, okay? But, unfortunately, I caved. It is a good show.
He caved. It's great. So, this episode of the podcast and previous episodes of the pod can be found on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, Google Podcast, Stitcher, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. If you're listening to us on Apple, be sure to leave a 5-star review, leave a comment in the comments section. I don't know how the folks out at Apple figure out the algorithm, but the 5-star review helps us get a little bit more viewership and exposure on the Apple Store. So help a brother out. Hook us up with a 5-star review. You can also find us on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Pro Football Radio Podcast, Twitter at PFR Podcast. I'm on the Twitter machine, Brando_Puma. Jay Cheema is at Jay Cheema. And our senior contributor, senior insider, Eric Burgess, a.k.a. The Burge, is on Twitter at Burge the Goalie. He is, like we said earlier, he's doing all right. He's just super tired, but that hasn't stopped him from giving us shit or going hard in the paint about Adam Jones and how he doesn't think hockey is relevant. Adam Jones is really barking up the wrong tree with Burge, but definitely worth the follow. Definitely check him out. It'll also give you some hockey insight on the Twitter machine for his Boston Bruins as well too. But like, subscribe, download, hit us up. Be sure to follow us on the social media platforms for our upcoming recording schedule.
Yep. And like you said, Puma, we're wishing Burge a speedy recovery. I'm sure you'll be back as soon as possible. Hopefully you're doing well, brother man, if you're listening. And one last thing before we go, Jovi!
Jovi! And hang on, wait. I gotta give Nostradamus his due. Freddie Soliotis, you're fired! But help me win my bets.
See you guys in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Fire con Dios!